Turn for
Hello. Everybody
The guy
recovered from
changed.
last night? I think, at this point, hopefully everybody's woken up. I don't know if Burnt is awake under those glasses. We'll see. We'll see. Thanks, everybody, for coming. We have an incredible panel here, a mix of folks who have been building on Solana from the early days, which really isn't too long ago in real time, to folks who are recent entrants with incredible success. And so today we're going to talk about this transformation to the creator economy that we're in the middle of right now. We're going to think about how each of our panelists here are empowering creators and helping us transform our real world and internet economy to one that's better for creators. We're going to go around and kind of discuss some individual questions for each of the panelists on stage, and then we'll open it up to a bit more of a greenfield discussion afterwards. So first, Sam, back in June when the NFT ecosystem on Solana was just getting off the ground, Solanart was one of the very first to jump into building a secondary marketplace. Why did you start at that point? And since then, the market has evolved a lot. All right. How are you adapting, and what's next?
Yeah. So, like you said, back in it was June or July, like the NFTs on Solana were like very scarce. Like there was basically like it was just starting to like grow, and basically I guess we just like saw the potential of Solana. Like we saw like the low transaction fees. We saw the very fast transactions, and we were like, well, NFTs are booming on Ethereum. Why wouldn't they be booming on Solana? Like like in the near future. The thing is, we didn't expect it to go that fast. So it all happened so fast, and we were just like building like we just found like a new playground basically away from Ethereum and the like very high transaction fees. And we were like, okay, let's try like Solana. It looks cool. And like basically that's how it all started. And then little by little, it started growing and growing and booming. And then we feel like, I mean, personally, I feel like there was a before and an after Degenerate Ape Academy. That was when NFTs on Solana really exploded. And that's when we realized that, okay, we might be onto something. And we like kept on building, kept on like trying to improve our marketplace. And I guess like right now, what's in the future for us is to keep building, keep innovating, try to improve the marketplace like day by day, listen to like the criticism that's being made to us, and try to like listen to it and like build on what's being told to us, and obviously like recruit. Like we're like a small team, as you might know. It's still like 4 people, but we're like getting there, recruiting, and we're gonna keep building because we want to be like one of the leading innovative projects on Solana, basically, along with like all these amazing projects that we have today.
Amazing, awesome. I mean, so this is a good segue into Zed, Magic Eden, right? Part of the kind of secondary marketplace ecosystem that has been maturing. You guys are a relatively recent entrant, but have been growing incredibly quickly and are now one of the biggest secondary marketplaces on Solana. What was missing in the ecosystem that made you start? And with all the continuing competition entering, how do you think about differentiating yourselves from all the other secondary marketplaces moving forward? And how do you think about competition differentiation in this space, both for yourself and generally for folks thinking about building?
Dude, big questions. So I think a few things, right? Like maybe I can share a bit of the origin story of Magic Eden as some context, because I think there's some interesting elements there. So our team comes from like very strong consumer product backgrounds. So I used to be a PM at Coinbase. My co-founders were at Uber and Facebook, and we were pretty interested to build like a super interesting consumer product in crypto. And we thought that NFT marketplaces was a really good place to do that because of the sheer like proliferation and growth in NFTs over the last 9 months. And we weren't even necessarily thinking about like Solana necessarily. We were actually just thinking about what should a Web3 marketplace truly look like. And we approached it from that first principles layer and felt that a lot of the existing marketplaces that were out there had very much of like an eBay style experience of like, it felt very transactional, right? Whereas in actuality, where we think NFTs are going is that it's very much a community and social element to this, as well as a transactional layer. Like in the same way that exchanges, for some, like as they proliferated, were, you know, they built the exchange, then they built like a brokerage, then they built like custody and all these other things around it. And I think NFTs will be in a very, very similar set of like infrastructure build over time. So that's sort of how we got started and why we wanted to build something a little bit different. And we've been around for just under 2 months, and it's been a pretty insane couple of months. So to your second question around like how I think about differentiation and competition, I think there's going to be obviously like very intense competition at that secondary marketplace layer. I think that's pretty clear, and that's true for Ethereum, that's true for Solana, that'll be true for any sort of like core secondary marketplace in any industry. For us, like when we think about differentiation, like there's a few things, right? One is you can go vertically and tackle things like primary issuance. And that's something we're really interested in. So how do you build a set of creator tools that allows creators to come in, you know, get into the ecosystem, mint NFTs in a way that doesn't require any coding, right? So like how do you lower the barriers to entry on that front? And then obviously like primary issuance then leads directly into the secondary marketplace. So that's kind of the first point, like a vertical sort of approach. Then there's like a horizontal approach where you can kind of tackle like, you know, specific categories like games or specific categories like one-of-one artwork, right? And like a lot of the marketplaces today have a very generalized marketplace experience. But my expectation going forward is that NFTs are going to get really weird in all these different categories. And whoever has like very deep, you know, deep set of standards, deep set of like UX experiences, a deep sort of like understanding of like what the use cases are within these verticals is going to do really well. So I think that's probably the other piece that we're thinking a lot about.
That's great. And you know, Irvin is building a game. Open Dive and Open Era is one of the leaders in thinking about gaming on Solana. Gaming on Solana is about to take off. And Open Dive will be using NFT-backed assets in-game. Open Era is building an AR wallet to allow people to interact with NFTs in physical space. So, you know, to Zed's point, marketplaces are going to have to evolve to support gaming use cases. How do you think NFT marketplaces need to evolve, and how does the NFT ecosystem in general need to evolve to support the sorts of assets that you're going to be building for gaming?
So I think there's 3 things that need to happen. The first one is that we really need to focus on standards. And so when we think about, for example, interoperability, right? What does it mean to share assets in the metaverse? Everyone talks about this concept, but currently what happens is interoperability at the business level, right? So we need to have standards, not at the business level, but at the protocol level. So for example, current games, when they decide to kind of share assets across each other, they enter into a business agreement to kind of include these assets into each game, right? And so this could affect also how marketplaces work. But it's, you know, it's not only just standards at the technology or the protocol level, but also standards in terms of the terminology. I'm building a game, or we're building a game, not just for the degens, right? Not for the guys who are like in their mid-20s or mid-30s, because these guys are not going to grind 12, 10 hours, even more. In reality, it's the young audience. So if I go to my nephew, who's 6, you know, and his cousins, and tell them, hey guys, you have to get a wallet. What does that mean? Or, hey guys, you're going to use gas. Like, what does that mean, right? So we need to think about not only about Web 3.0, but also about Web 2.0. And extending from that, I would say that really the concept of the marketplace is a centralized concept. I mean, I love these guys here, but in reality, when we think about Bitcoin back in the days, it was about peer-to-peer transactions. So we need to figure out a way to perform peer-to-peer NFT transactions, so loot box swapping and things like that. And there's other stuff too, really, to consider. For example, when you think about, you know, educating people, like I mentioned, and let's see. And also, like the last thing that I would say is, you know, current mobile wallets are boring, right? Currently, people focus particularly on how to create these assets or these NFTs, but they don't focus on how to consume the actual asset. They don't focus on the experience. And so when we're building this wallet, we're really focusing around the experience for NFTs, right? And what comes next. And so that really needs to happen, right? How do we consume the media, not just how we showcase it as a JPEG on a plain wallet.
In addition to gaming, kind of enabling this kind of boom in NFTs, we talk about needing more kind of innovation in the way that we exchange. In the DeFi space on Solana, we've had a lot of that innovation, but it's maybe a little bit more difficult for the average person to engage with than an NFT transaction. Burnt is creating a lot of innovative auction types for NFTs, in addition to other kinds of tooling that will bridge DeFi and the NFT space. Currently the DeFi ecosystem feels a little bit independent of NFTs. But there's been a lot of talk of things like lending, fractionalization, staking of NFTs, right? Things like this. So, Burnt, if you're awake under those glasses, then that, what are the most promising use cases for NFTs in DeFi? Where are you guys going to play a role, and how is this going to actually take off with the mainstream?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. Mic check for Burnt.
I can yell.
Here.
I'm good at yelling.
Go, Burnt.
Sorry, I gave you the bad one. Yeah.
I'll hold that if you want.
So, I mean, I think kind of to first start that off, just Urban, thank you, and I think kind of gave me a pretty good T-ball on what we're building over here. And I think kind of just starting, even before I dive into the question, a lot of this is really kind of dependent on answering what's been happening over the past hundreds of years in the current idea of a marketplace. And of course, Urban, I didn't pay him, I swear, but he gave me a pretty good T-ball on that. Marketplaces are a very centralized idea. And really, the way that Burnt started was this aspect of being able to create this completely peer-to-peer marketplace in a decentralized environment. This has been an industry that has really been, and I hate using the word gate-kept, but, gate-kept for a very long time, where a lot of people, including, people like us, really couldn't, I remember we burned a Banksy a while ago, sold it on OpenSea, and a lot of the places we couldn't even get onto because I was anonymous. And I wasn't famous yet. And kind of after that fact, you realize there's a very big issue, not only in crypto, but in the traditional environment, especially in the Web 2 world. And sadly, a lot of what I am seeing is, I like to call it radio on the internet, where it effectively is just Web 2 with the name of blockchain in mind, with no real deviation onto anything. And so to be able to create a peer-to-peer, completely decentralized marketplace is something that we've been trying to do for the past 5 months. And I think when we do take this next step, we truly see NFTs as a Trojan horse into the DeFi industry. I really don't think you had any more retail traction than something that Top Shot brought in. I mean, really look at something like Axie Infinity, or even all the play-to-earn games right now. I mean, at the end of the day, you're interacting with a DeFi protocol with a mask that is a game, and it's enjoyable and it's fun, and it brings in a lot of traction. And I think if there is a way that we get to this aspect of truly DeFi and a truly decentralized future, we see it as NFTs. It is a perfect Trojan horse.
Read.
Thanks. Yeah. I mentioned that we have some kind of new entrants to the Solana ecosystem up on stage, and Zed talked about Magic Eden coming up online 2 months ago. Soul Analysis is a recent winner of the Ignition Hackathon, so congrats. It's also been an invaluable resource for those of us who need to kind of keep track of the NFT ecosystem growth. The metrics you're providing around total volume and market cap for NFTs has been great to kind of actually measure the growth, which has gone from basically 0 in June to over $1 billion in market value across NFTs in the Solana ecosystem as of just a few days ago.
Yep.
You're also now expanding into things like launchpad tools, release schedules, right? Things that go beyond metrics. So one question is about your roadmap. Are you going to be adding more analyses and metrics for the community to keep track of, or are you going in the direction of a different sort of product offering?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to build towards this kind of unknown future, and it's interesting listening to people's views here on stage in terms of centralization versus decentralized. Like maybe there's going to be a million different marketplaces. Maybe there's going to be a handful. It's kind of unclear, I think, at the moment because we're still applying a lot of Web 2 frameworks to Web 3. For us, where we really wanted to serve a pivotal role in the ecosystem is really being able to give this bird's eye view of what's happening no matter what. I do think we need to get a little bit further as far as standards and standardization, but the role that we've kind of filled early on is really serving as an aggregator. We want to go deeper in the aggregation tools for users. We think that it's going to get really, really crazy. It's going to be wild, and we need to help users be able to navigate this landscape and this ecosystem. And so we're continuing to build tools on the user side, including one thing that we did for the hackathon, which is actually how my co-founders and I got started with Soul Analysis, which is actually we wanted to understand what was the value of an NFT. We wanted to be able to predict the value, so we applied anything ranging from neural nets to a regression model to say, like, this is the predicted value of an NFT because you have a different host of user personas that want to get into NFTs, some of which want to be collectors, some of which want to be traders, some just want to be part of a community. And you want to empower people to make the right decision, even if that right decision is I want to buy into this community so that I can partake in this ecosystem that's forming. So we formed NFT Flex, we called it, in order to enable that. But I also think there's an entire host of applications that can be built on top of that, whether it's collateralization, borrowing and lending against NFTs, et cetera, which is really interesting hearing the Burnt on stage talk through DeFi. And like for us, like in terms of I think a lot of people actually on stage are probably really well suited to think of to go into DeFi and go down the DeFi track. And I think what's really appealing to us with NFTs, and it's probably really appealing to a lot of people in the room, is this mass adoption of crypto as a whole. And we think it's going to come in the form of NFTs, especially in developed countries where gaming, entertainment, et cetera, is really, really large. So to maybe summarize really quickly, we have all the tools that we're trying to build for users, but we also are trying to empower projects as well to help build towards kind of at least what we think that the future might hold. So we did release our Launchpad, and we're going to continue to go down the suite of features for projects, whether it's looking more into DAO formation and tooling, et cetera. I'll leave it at that.
That's great. I think all of you have shared some of the vision for where your projects are headed. And immediately, I hear some commonality around wanting to build better creator tooling. And we are kind of thinking about how we enable a more creator-driven economy here on stage today. What are some of the missing pieces of tooling in the Solana NFT ecosystem that you all want to build, or maybe issue a challenge to the folks in the audience here? What needs to get built to make the NFT ecosystem in Solana the best for creators, out there? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think something that was, oddly common in a 5-person panel, but 3 people brought up standards, and I think that is where we need to start. Before we can really build anything on top of something, we need a very strong foundation. And I know a while ago, I think everyone on this panel absolutely uses, the Metaplex standard, which is awesome. And then kind of something that we had an idea a while ago was creating the Solana NFT Alliance. We have over 40 names on it, and really just trying to push this the idea of standardization, not only just just so that we can all have it and have ease of access, but for new people coming onto a platform, new developers, people who want to learn, there's no open Zeppelin here right now, right? Especially if we want to have something like an open Zeppelin on Solana. The idea for this kind of alliance was to do something like that, and I think especially as we start to kind of think of more standards on ourselves and really submit it to the community. For example, we're currently building a standard that we'll be pushing in the next 2 weeks of collections on chain, effectively, so we can kind of keep track of everything, right? But something like that where we can then bring this out to the community and we can all communally agree on a standard and kind of work towards this common goal, while effectively all boats are going to be rising together. And I think before we can really solve this situation of what we build on top, we need to figure out the standard solution. And we are in the best place because you're looking at the authors right now, and really the future is so bright. That's why I have the sunglasses, really.
Yeah, I think to extend from Bernd's comment, really, that standards do matter. And as I mentioned, I think we need to have standards at the protocol level, not at the business level. And so the Metaplex standard is one of them. And this sort of NFT standard is very different from what we see in EVM-compatible chains, where essentially the NFT is deployed to the chain, so anybody can go ahead and extend it or modify it and deploy it to be compatible with a traditional NFT, right? But this has an issue because what happens to royalties, right? If you guys use OpenSea, if you use kind of like Rarible, the royalties go away. And so the only way that royalties remain is if marketplaces agree upon that these royalties will stay. It's an EVM. Now, contrary to this, the Metaplex standard is on-chain, right? It's at the protocol level. So any marketplaces, Solana, Magic Eden, when NFTs are traded or sold, the royalties remain there. And so that's huge. So that's one thing I think we got to look into. And for everyone out there that's looking into NFTs or building or deploying anything related to NFTs, I think user experience is something that's really missing, right? How to consume the media. But also, I would say to a lot of marketplaces coming up that I think, you don't have to always charge the user to trade NFTs, right? I can't imagine, like telling someone in the Web 2.0 world, hey, you're going to have to pay a tiny fee every time you do something, right? In the ETH world, we have this concept of meta transactions, where essentially the transactional cost or the gas cost is eaten up by the platform. And so I look forward to that coming to Solana pretty soon.
And I know that there are people here who are working on meta transactions, like
Yep.
Taurus and others.
Shout out.
Bring it up in conversations. I'd love to hear more thoughts, right? What are some of the creator tools that need to exist in the ecosystem? We heard about protocol standardization. It's incredibly important, especially for all of the builders in the crowd. What are we doing to make it easier for folks who don't code, for folks who are artists, who are creators, and all sort of stripes? What do we need to build to make this a really user-friendly environment?
Yeah, I can jump in a couple of comments. I think the first thing there's two users, right? One is the creator, and one is the end user who's looking to explore what NFTs are interesting or what communities are interesting. I think on the first one, it's we've had so many projects come and approach us and say, hey, do you guys have any developers that we can leverage, utilize, or can someone help me get this project up and running? So I think the first thing that's very, very low-hanging fruit is if I have a bunch of digital files and some metadata, how can I turn that into something that's a collection or a drop or something that's that is a set of NFTs, right? And I think that's sort of what we're generally converging towards around this launchpad idea. We have a launchpad on Magic Eden as well, and I think there's a few different ways to go about this. On the end user side, I think one of the big UX problems that we've been thinking about is if you're a first-time user landing on Magic Eden or Solana or one of these marketplaces, there are 500 collections there. Which one is interesting to me? Why would I buy into a Thugbird? Why would I buy into a Degen Ape? What is it about these communities that is interesting? And there's actually no way to do that within the experience of a traditional marketplace, which is why I think there's some social layer that's I think really interesting here. And you imagine it's something like land on the site. Maybe it's some level of information around what the community is talking about, what they care about. Maybe they're voting on some proposals. And it gives you a flavor of what is important and what matters to this community versus landing on this page and then you're just overwhelmed with what's going on. So I think there's something there from a UX standpoint. The kind of community interaction and community environment is very fragmented across Marketplace, Discord, Twitter, a bunch of other places, right? So I think on the end user side, there's a ton more we can do, whether that's in the web app or a mobile app that can help with a lot of that information.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
You go ahead.
All right. Okay. So yeah, well, obviously there's different types of users, there's the traders, there's the holders, and then you have different backgrounds. You have users that come from a different blockchain. You have users who are totally new to crypto, and crypto is different from the regular world because you have all these different blockchains that are developing, and the question is how do you onboard them on Solana, and how do you provide that value that will make them come and produce their art on Solana. And so I feel that goes through a different set of tools that are coming out as we speak. So for example, Solflare just announced their mobile app. That's extremely important. A lot of our users use a phone. They all do their transaction on a phone. So that's one of the things most people like only like use like the marketplaces on the phone, you know. So like that's one thing, like making it more accessible to like regular users, whether they're like already familiar with the blockchain or if they're just like discovering it. Making like Zed said, like the user experience better, like providing tools such as like being able to like mint your NFTs without having like any knowledge of code. That's like one way to go at it with that is like a launchpad. Another is like something that other marketplaces do, like minting your NFTs like directly on the marketplace. That brings other like issues, you know, like fakes and all that. So like I feel like there's a lot to think about in that aspect. We already have our own ideas on how to approach that, and I feel like that's like an area where like creativity is really needed, basically. So like yeah, like how to help like creators do that is basically by providing these tools that you can build on the marketplace and like help them like have like a seamless experience, just like they have like for example on Amazon. And that's like what we've been thinking about for the last month, and that's where like we're gonna be starting to build.
Awesome. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the utility has been really limited with NFT projects to date, right? Like, I don't want to believe that the utility of all these NFT projects is going to be like buying and selling on the secondary market. Like, I think that there will be, especially in the gaming world, et cetera, like there's going to be these really, really fun applications of NFTs and what I can do with them. And I think that's where we need people building. I think that there are a bunch of people working on the Launchpad. I'm not going to lie, we ourselves are also working on the Launchpad. Effectively, it's called Moonshot, and we'll be launching our first cohort later this month. So we have a couple of different projects. You can check it online. But it's also like, hey, what comes after that? Is it really just like, okay, everybody who's joined this community can just like trade it back and forth with each other or with like new members? What if everybody who bought into this collection really wants to be part of this collection because of like what it can provide? And there's actually really limited secondary trading because there's like, I don't know, something else that people are doing with it. So I think we're going to have to figure out, we need to figure out what is the something else, and we'll have to create, there's going to need to be tooling because you're transferring a lot of people that are probably not going to come from the Web3 world into Web3 because they have a lot of experience doing this in other domains. And so there's going to have to be tooling to kind of bridge people over into this world.
Good example of that, HTML5 Canvas NFT is just, I just saw the first project released on the FTX marketplace recently. This allows for sort of interactivity in the browser with an NFT. It's going to unlock a lot of different use cases from just the sort of profile picture projects that we've seen be successful so far. So we've got about a minute and a half left. Let's do like a rapid fire. After profile pictures, what are going to be the next interesting use cases for NFTs in the Solana ecosystem? Let's start with Sam and go this way.
So I think that like right now there's a wave coming of basically like gaming NFTs and like metaverse and all that, and that's like gonna be a new challenge for marketplaces to tackle. Like, how do you provide value to these projects so that they'll be able to like have their users enjoy their experience and trade their NFTs with like the particularity of like it being a gaming NFT. So for example, we're like working with Aurori on that, and like which is like one of the biggest gaming NFTs on Solana. And we feel like that's probably gonna be it. Like, we're gonna shift probably towards utility NFTs, so gaming, metaverse, probably like digital goods, and that's like what's really exciting to us, and that's like what we want to see.
Rapid fire, probably gaming, DeFi, and then a bunch of stuff I don't know.
I would say gaming or NFTs in gaming that are not lazy, because I don't think that your NFTs need to be put to work whenever you're physically there. So.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I kind of think it's going to be a lot of immersion, right? So like to kind of give an example, the next thing that we're burning is, sadly or finally, whatever you stand on that, Bartaj's slippers and actually working. Hopefully there's a 3D model that we can make or someone who can help us make it. But effectively, you all get to feel the shaming pride of wearing Bartaj's slippers after
Yeah, so come over to the hacker house and be able to try on the slippers in the metaverse after we burn them.
I'll say a couple of things. One is capital markets for NFTs, which obviously is very related to games, and then layering of NFTs on one another. Could be games, could be anything, but it's just going to get pretty weird. So we're pretty excited about it.
All right, thank you so much, everybody on stage. I think we finished right on time. Thank you for coming. Glad.